On the 7th of July 1940, the British Mediterranean Fleet of the Royal Navy set sail from the Egyptian port of Alexandria, bound for Malta. The task assigned to the fleet was to escort 2 convoys sailing from Malta to Alexandria, with the official British history stating. It was expected that the Italian Navy would dispute the passage of these ships, so it was decided that the movement should take place under the cover of a fleet operation. To carry out this task, the Mediterranean Fleet was split into 3 groups, known as Force A, Force B and Force C, totaling 3 battleships, 1 aircraft carrier, 16 destroyers and 5 light cruisers. Simultaneously, another group, designated Force H, was to deploy into the Western Mediterranean from Gibraltar and carry out diversionary attacks to draw the Italian Navy away from the main escort operation. Starting out from Alexandria in the evening of the 7th of July, the Mediterranean Fleet almost immediately began to be harassed by the Italians, when a submarine made an unsuccessful attack on one of the British destroyers. This submarine would later inform the headquarters of the Italian Navy of the presence, approximate size, and movement of the British force, which led to a series of high-level air attacks which persisted throughout the next 4 or 5 days. During the course of one morning, the battleship HMS Warspite counted no less than 300 bombs dropped around her in 22 attacks. Despite the intensity of these aerial attacks, the Mediterranean Fleet would continue on virtually unscathed, with the only damage being to HMS Gloucester, a light cruiser assigned to Force A, which at 1600 on the 8th of July received a direct hit on her bridge, with the attack sadly claiming the lives of 18 men. It was also on the 8th of July that HMS Phoenix, a Royal Navy submarine, observed an Italian fleet of 2 battleships, 16 cruisers and 32 destroyers heading south towards Libya. Under the command of Admiral Inigo Campioni, this Italian fleet was likewise tasked with escorting a supply convoy that was sailing from Italy to the Libyan port of Benghazi. Following Phoenix's sighting, a short Sunderland flying boat of the Royal Air Force's 228 Squadron was sent out from Malta to shadow the Italian fleet, and in the evening of the 8th of July, the Sunderland reported that the fleet had changed course and was heading back to Italy. On receiving this latest report, Admiral Andrew Cunningham, Commander-in-Chief of the Mediterranean Fleet, instructed for the Malta convoys to be delayed whilst he turned his force northwards in an attempt to get between the Italian fleet and its home port of Taranto. By midday on the 9th of July, Admiral Cunningham had closed within 145 kilometres of the enemy, at which point he decided to push on at full speed with his flagship, HMS Warspite, 4 of his cruisers, and the supporting destroyers to intercept the enemy fleet. In the meantime, the rest of his force, comprising the slower vessels, including the battleships HMS Malaya and Royal Sovereign, and the aircraft carrier HMS Eagle, will follow up a short distance behind. Sailing through the Ionian Sea, the Admiral's detachment was on lookout for any enemy ships, when at 14:48 on the 9th of July, HMS Orion, one of the cruisers, sighted the Italian fleet in the distance. Approximately 30 minutes later, at 15:15, a handful of Italian cruisers began engaging their British counterparts. The official British history notes, "The horizon came alive with a large number of Italian ships, which immediately concentrated on the 4 British cruisers. Heavily outnumbered, outgunned, outranged, and unable to control the area ahead of the battle fleet, they were saved from a precarious position by HMS Warspite coming into action. At 15:26, Warspite opened up with her 8 381mm main guns, forcing the Italian cruisers to withdraw from the engagement under the cover of a smokescreen. There then followed a short lull in the contact until 15:50, when the 2 Italian battleships, the Giulio Cesare and the Conte di Cavour, appeared on the horizon. By this time, the British battleship HMS Malaya had closed the distance between it and the Warspite, although the Italian warships were still beyond her effective firing range. Then, at 15:52, the Cesare and the convoy opened fire against HMS Warspite and Malta, respectively. A minute later, at 15:53, Warspite began returning fire, with an Italian Navy report documenting that. Warspite began firing without realising that only the Cesare was engaging her. Warspite's fire was split in what is commonly known as volley firing, with the aft turrets trained at the Cesare and the stern ones at the convoy. For the next 7 minutes, the Cesare and the Warspite exchanged near misses with one another, with the former landing a shot just 300 metres beyond the British battleship, which had the result of causing slight damage to the nearby destroyers, HMS Decoy and HMS Hereward. This was followed at 1600 on the 9th of July 1940 by one of the Warspite's 381mm rounds directly hitting the upper deck of the Italian battleship, causing 115 casualties, knocking out 4 of the 8 boilers, and reducing the Cesare's speed from 25 knots to 18. In addition, the distance between the two warships at the time calculated at approximately 24 kilometres or 14 miles, meaning HMS Warspite has scored the longest battleship-on-battleship hit in military history. The service history of HMS Warspite records that the tactical result of this hit was immediate, the Italian fleet turning away under smoke covered by their destroyers. As the Italians commenced disengaging, so too did the Warspite, who made a sharp portside turn before firing a final shot at 16:04. For the next hour, skirmishes unfolded between the British and Italian destroyers and cruisers until all firing ceased at 16:50 and the Italian fleet disappeared in the direction of Sicily. By now, the British Mediterranean fleet was just 40 kilometres off the southern coast of Italy. The official British history concludes with: following the end of the naval battle, more high-level bombing attacks now developed on the British fleet and lasted for 4 hours, during which the Italian aircrews distributed a large number of bombs on their own fleet, even after the Italian ships had begun to enter the Straits of Messina between Sicily and mainland Italy. An Italian Navy report also commented that the real issue in the area of naval engagement is not between the British and us, but between the Air Force and the Navy. Count Chino, the Italian Minister of Foreign Affairs, was sceptical about the many successes claimed by the Air Force, but Mussolini was not. He truly believed that he had already destroyed half of the British naval power in the Mediterranean.